Hello and welcome to the RAFT self-build tutorials. These are going to be a series of videos showing you exactly how to build your very own ultra lightweight backpacking boat using the self-build kit available from the RAFT website. Let's take a look at the components needed to build your own Packraft. Going through here, we've got your floor. This is 420 denier nylon 66, and it's got a thermoplastic polyurethane coating on one side, TPU, and on the other side regular polyurethane. The tubes are 210 denier with the same sort of coating. You've got thermoplastic polyurethane one side and regular polyurethane the other. Each of the tube pieces is a unique shape. There's 5 different shapes that make up the classic Packraft design, and there's 2 of each shape as it's symmetrical down the middle. There's some basic markings on them to help you orientate and seal them correctly. We've got your strips here. These seal in between the tubing. They're made out of the 210 denier tube material, and they're pre-cut here, but they're not necessarily going to come pre-cut. It depends what kit you buy. We give you the choice because it can be difficult to get a nice straight edge on them, so we offer them pre-cut if you'd like that. Otherwise you can cut them at home. The floor to tube reinforcement strips, so when you seal the floor down to the tube, that will sit in there and that puts a nice reinforcement there. They're nice and oversized to give the maximum strength. 2 tubes of 28 gram Aquashore urethane adhesive, and you'll need that to install your Boston valve, and we also seam seal the inside of the tubing, just added reassurance in case you haven't got an airtight seal completely from your heat sealing. You've got the circular piece of fabric to install your Boston valve, and you've got your Boston valve itself. That includes the base plate, which is quite difficult to find on sale in the UK. So they're the components of the Packraft. So some of the things that you're going to need to build it. First of all, the heat sealing iron. We've been using a Jamara ProStar iron. I think this is 175 watts, and it's really powerful, and it does a great job. There is a downside to that power, is the size, and you've got to be really careful where that iron is because it could melt things. The disadvantage of the size is that you end up using just the tip of it a lot of the time, but I think it's worth that compromise because you get a really good seal with that. It's worth noting that if you're using this in the UK, you'll need an adapter to get it to 3-pin plug. We have used the Clover Mini Iron 2, but here in the UK it was quite underpowered, and it wouldn't maintain the required temperature to activate the TPU. So our seals were very temperamental. You're going to need a curved surface to drape the fabric over in order to align the 3-dimensional curves. We've been using this stainless steel mixing bowl. It's roughly 10 centimeters from the base to the top, and that gives a nice curve that works well on the Packraft design. Some weights to hold your pieces in place when you're aligning them are helpful. We've been using these half kilogram dumbbell weights, but you could use any paper weights or books or something, or sticky tape. And your work surface, you're going to need something that you're not going to burn with the iron, because the iron's going to be operating around 200 degrees C, so we do it on top of plywood. Don't do it on top of a tablecloth or anything like that because it will melt. So a heat resistant work surface, and you're going to want approximately 1.5 meters by 1 meter in order to have a comfortable working area. Obviously we've got a much larger table here, but it's not necessary. Scissors are the final thing you'll need. Throughout the project there might be some fine adjustments that you need to do when you're lining things up, so you can just cut what you need with the scissors, cut the end of the floor reinforcement strips, cut the end of the tubing strips. Most of these cuts aren't going to be showing, so you don't need to have expensive scissors that are going to give you an amazing finish, and don't worry if it's not completely straight. And that's more or less it. We'll now look at some of the basic principles behind building the Packraft. The fabric is coated on one side with TPU. The TPU will seal to itself only. It's the shiny side, and the basic rule to remember is always shiny side to shiny side. That means that you can either fold it onto itself and it will seal, or you can get 2 pieces shiny side to shiny side. Additionally, another thing to remember is that you can only iron on the non-shiny side. If you iron onto the TPU, it will activate the TPU and it will melt onto your iron, and that piece will be destroyed. So that's the basic principles. Now let's look at the boat and see how these come into play. The first thing you do is seal the floor. The floor is made by attaching the 10 tube pieces to this floor section. They're completely flat seams and it's nice and straightforward to do. It's going to take you approximately 2 hours to seal these sections to the floor, and you shouldn't have any problems with that. The valve is a quick job to do at the beginning of the project. It's glued on and it's also heat sealed on. It'll probably take you about half an hour to put it on, and then you let the glue dry overnight, and the following day you heat seal this ring around it. That gives you double protection. You've got the glue and the heat seal, keeping it airtight and watertight. These central 4 seams, they're 1, 2, 3, 4. The first seams that you're going to do that are 3-dimensionally curved. They're the most simple ones, as you're just curving in one direction and they line up quite easily. They'll probably take you about an hour and a half each seam. As we go out from the center, we've got 1, 2, 1, 2. These are slightly more difficult as they're curving in more than one direction. You've got the curve going this way and you've got your curve going that way, and you're going to have to join up that curve, which is a bit more fiddly, but it's not too difficult. That'll probably take you an hour and 45 minutes to 2 hours. The central seams, the front and the end, are different again, but they're not overly difficult, and we'll discuss that when we get to that stage.